Hey guys. Well, it's taken longer than usual, but I finally got my advanced Zi Geno Saurer. You know how this works. We're going to unbox the kit and look at the parts, compare it to some other versions of the Geno Saurer, and we're also going to check out its gimmicks and how it walks. Let's get to it.
Robo Shop.
Okay, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on the box right now because, as you might guess from the way this is filling up the screen right now, this thing is ginormous. The dimensions here on the front are actually the same as the Death Star box, but it's half as thick as that one, which means, well, for my purposes, means I have the same problem of not being able to fit it into the frame. Now, before we look at the rest of the box, I am going to do a quick comparison of this here to the NJR box art, because I think we have basically a do-over of that one here. So I'm going to beam you guys into the photo booth, and then we're going to be right back here. Okay, so here's the box art for the NJR release, which even if you've never seen it before, I'm sure you'll notice immediately it's very similar. We've got two Whale Kings in the sky and one landed, although interestingly enough, the ones on the NJR box don't actually look like the model, which is probably because that model actually came out quite a while after this box art was made. Also, you can see here on the AZ box, it's actually Mulgas coming out of the Whale King on the ground. What we do have on both is these tank traps and soldiers, and really the clouds and the overall color composition are almost exactly the same. I just think this is really cool. I like the AZ box is fine, but it just feels like someone at Takara Tomy is having fun with this release and trying to give us something cool that they really didn't need to spend the time and money on. And we're back. So, just quickly, on the sides here, we have the Zoids logo, we have the T-Spark logo, we have this little photo of it doing the CPC pose, and then on the back, also basically the usual, there's a big photo of the Geno Saurer here. It tells us that it walks, it shows us the light up features, that it can do the CPC pose. It comes with two different pilot figures, and it can be built up just as an inner frame without any of the armor pieces. And that's it, really. I mean, other than the art here on the front, the whole thing looks like a standard AZ box. So we're just going to crack this open now and see what's in here. All right, so I'm not going to be able to do like an unboxing where you can actually see me take the stuff out of the box. It's plain old just too big for the setup that I have here where I do my videos. So one thing at a time then. First of all, we have here the gearbox, which I'm trying to figure out where the batteries go. Here in the top, here's the power switch. Of course, it has this light unit, which actually appears to be plugged in here. So in theory, you could even sort of relatively easily replace this if something went wrong with it. Although, well, no, not really, because it's all encased here in this casing. There seem to actually be only these two pegs here that rotate. That's what drives. Oh no, here this drives the tail, no doubt, and this drives the jaw movement. So we've got these as well. Yeah, that's it. Also, of course, NJR accurate purple color here and quite a bit of detail that's molded directly into the gearbox. Next, we have these two pieces here, or well, it's just the next thing I want to look at, because I think this is really interesting. And the reason I think this is interesting is because if you've built the Geno Spino from the Zoids Wild line, then this should look awfully familiar. No doubt this is some sort of well, some sort of, this is a mechanism that the legs mount to. Yeah, you can see here, this is where the rotating pegs on the gearbox attach. The legs are going to mount to this, and it's going to allow them to move like this, like the upper thighs when it walks, which is why it should be able to pick up its feet much better than models that don't have this kind of mechanism built into them. It's really cool that they remembered that they actually solved this problem in the Zoids Wild line. Up next, and somewhat less interestingly, we have this batch of sprues here. There are these dark purple pieces that look to be part of what folds out of the neck and or tail for the CPC pose. Here we have caps. They look like they have, it's interesting, they're going to slot into where they go in some sort of specific way, as these AZ models tend to do. More bits and pieces. This goes on the neck. This is, can't remember what this is, might go on the arms. Dark purple. And then we have some light purple mechanical pieces. These look like lever bits that are going to drive various parts of the movement. The next bag contains a whole lot of painted parts. We have here, this is of course leg armor, and this is the shoulder armor, and it's kind of funny because it looks just like on the NJR model, where we have these armor pieces and then these grills are painted on. Gotta say, cop out, not a fan of this. It's going to make this infinitely more difficult to paint for two different reasons. A, because you have to strip it first, ideally, and B, because then you have to do masking. If these were just separate parts, we wouldn't have this problem. Ditto here, we have yet another Geno Saurer with painted headpieces. Silver here and silver on the teeth. Yeah, I mean, if I just build it straight out of the box, which is what I'm going to do for present purposes, it's going to look awesome. If I ever want to paint this thing, not so much. More pre-painted stuff. Okay. I'm sorry if I'm getting negative during the unboxing. I'm sure I'll be singing a different tune once I've got the whole thing assembled and walking, but why? Why? These are pistons. They are molded in silver and then factory painted gold. Can somebody explain to me how this makes sense? Okay. Well, anyway. Moving on, these guys are in the same baggie together. We have, of course, the clear pieces that go over the eyes for that Death Saurer vibe. And we have these two pilot figures. Looks to me like generic Zoids pilot, and this is Raven. And then we have a couple different, I mean, these are obviously caps, but they seem to work in two different ways. We're going to take a quick look at the instructions when I'm done going through the parts here, and then we'll figure this out. Next, I have this stack of sprues here, a whole bunch of mechanical bits for the legs. This is in the bright purple, very nicely detailed. And then we have dark purple for the, well, more like dark blue, really. This isn't really purple. For the armor. And yeah, not much to say here. I mean, it's, you know, it's the Geno Saurer armor with some extra detail. More armor bits, sharply molded, nicely detailed, no complaints here. Then we have a whole bunch of metallic silver stuff. I'm guessing this is, yeah, there's a lot of these, and this is probably why these gold pistons are molded in metallic silver, because then they can just use the same plastic that they used for these. We've got claws, we've got toes, we've got the foot here that these mount to so that they can move. This is like ankle armor. And then we have the cannons that go on the back. Somewhat disappointingly, no color separation whatsoever on the guns. Alright, and these are the last two sprues that I have to show you guys. All purple stuff, of course, for the inner frame. This looks like it goes on the torso for external internal detail. We have a hydraulic sprue here that's not molded separately. Here we have, of course, yeah, more basically like detail up bits for the internal frame. Whole lot of detail on all of this, I must say. Looks very nice. That's all the parts. And then we have the baggie with the instructions and the stickers. So let's get this stuff out of here. All right, stickers first. And as you might expect, this looks basically like an NJR sticker sheet. We do have Raven's logo here, Gylos emblems, EZ026, and the usual caution markings that you would expect to see on this. And then we have here these two little, I'm trying to get this in focus, these two little springs. I don't want to take them out of the back because they look like something that's easy to lose. We have these two little spring pieces here that look like they lock something in place. Well, that's my segue to let's open up the instructions because I want to see what that does. First of all, for the caps, like very oddly, this isn't explained at the start of the instructions, but just the first time it comes up. There's an A and a B sprue with like these two different versions of the cap here and these insert pieces, and it just explains here how to put this in here and then apparently rotate it 90 degrees. I'm still going to translate all of this, but I need my phone for that, which I'm filming all of this on, which is why it looks like crap. So that's going to have to wait until later. And then here, the first time you use a B cap, it tells you how to do it for this one as well. It's also worth noting, by the way, that the two springs are not identical. There's an A and a B, so be careful not to get them mixed up. These are also, this says left and right here. One quick thing, it says here in the instructions to put the batteries in first, and I'll already tell you now, you're probably going to want to do this. I had this issue with the Death Saurer. I also had it with the Zero Crisis, where just because it was complicated, you know, you start running it, and then you realize it doesn't work, and then you have to partially take it apart when you're already done. It's very easy to avoid that by just putting the batteries in first, and then testing it every now and then. Next, the coil springs are actually used on, you can see here, they go underneath one of these toe claws, but only one of them looks to be the one on the side of the foot that faces inside, based on what I'm seeing here. Really, like, just looking at this, I have no idea what that's going to do, but we are, of course, going to find out. Last thing I'll say about these instructions, by the way, I do think it's kind of interesting that this is all like completely in Japanese. There isn't a single word of English here. Not even like, you know, coil spring, or, you know, how they usually go like assembly of the neck, assembly of the head, things like that, that I always kind of wonder if they're really just there for flavor for Japanese customers. Everything here is completely in Japanese, whereas of course on the RMZ models, which are from the same manufacturer, everything's translated to English as well. I don't know, it's just something I've noticed. No real problem either way, because Google Translate is a thing these days. I found one thing that's in English. It tells you that it takes AAA batteries in English, and that those are not included. That's the one thing that's in English here. And of course, Tyrannosaurus type and what scale it is. But that's, I mean, this is definitely just flavor text. This is information. This has no reason to be here for like aesthetic reasons. So yeah, anyway, listen, I'll stop waffling now and get building so that we can check this thing out. Now let's take a look at the gimmicks first. The cannons can rotate all around, and they can also rotate vertically. The arms can rotate as well, and they're on a ball joint, so they can be moved in and out like so. The elbow joint is, well, it's there, but it doesn't really move all that much. The claws are individually jointed, and the hands are on ball joints. And the unexpected gimmick here is that there are these pegs on the chest that the arms plug into so that you have them in place for when it walks. As you'll see, the arms actually don't move at all. I'm just not sure these pegs are necessary to hold them in place. Anyway, from the front it looks like this. We also have the cockpit hatch, of course, which opens and reveals the pilot, who is meant to be held in place by this control contraption in front of him, but he doesn't really want to stay in place. The bigger problem though is that the hatch doesn't really close smoothly. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong here, but I always have to finagle it like you see me doing here. It's because there's this tab here at the bottom that it locks onto, and that just doesn't really work. What can I say? This is now the third version of the Geno Saurer where the cockpit hatch is a problem, and I really don't know why. What I didn't try is the replacement cockpit hatch. The kit comes with a purple one to match the color scheme of the NJR version, but I used the other one. And then for the CPC pose, of course we can open all these hatches here, and on the tail as well. And there goes an armor piece. The ones on the tip don't pop off this time, but they're really just held in place by a hope and a prayer. It's not great. And speaking of problems with parts not staying on, this ribcage type piece here on the back absolutely does not lock into where it's supposed to lock into, as you can see here without the armor on. With the armor on, it can come off all the way, so it's not really a problem, but there's really nothing on top holding it in place either. The pistons are working, of course, and you can also fold these stabilizers down for the CPC pose, and we've got the boosters here as well. And finally, of course you can swap out the cannons on the head, but notice how the armor here is the same blue as the rest, whereas on this piece the armor is silver. I don't much like the way this looks, but it does match the colors of the NJR version. I think the point with this and the cockpit hatch is that the pieces matching the rest of the armor is what it looked like in the anime, of course. Speaking of which, let's do some comparisons. First of all, of course we have the NJR here, which is noticeably different in color. The inner frame bits are almost pink by comparison, and the armor doesn't have the dark blue tint of the AZ. Near as I can tell, the AZ is just meant to look more like the version in the anime, though it's clearly not Raven's Geno Saurer, but the standard colors. It's also a bit sleeker and of course more detailed, although the differences in proportions are really not that pronounced. That's particularly obvious when you compare it to the HMM, which is of course much slimmer than either of the motorized versions, and interestingly enough, also has collars that are closer to the NJR model than the anime version. And here's the RMZ, which has the purple of the anime version, but the head armor of the NJR model. And definitely the best color separation out of the box on the cannons out of all of them. Oh yeah, and here's this guy. There's nothing to be learned from this comparison, but I don't know about you, I just like to be reminded that the AZ Death Saurer exists because it makes me happy, so here it is. Now, let's check out the Geno Saurer in motion. First, here's the inner frame just by itself. The instructions make kind of a hubbub about this stage of the construction, so I figured I might as well. And here it is with all the bells and whistles. I will say, for all my complaints about parts fit and the cockpit hatch, this may be the best engineered walk cycle we've ever seen on a motorized Zoid. And just look how smooth this is. And if you look closely at the legs, no cheating here like on the Death Saurer. It actually picks up its feet properly, and the spreading motion of the toes is there to provide a second stabilizer in addition to the one in the back of the foot. That's what the springs are for, to make sure those toes are always spread so it stays in balance. Also, if you look at it from the front, you can see the legs are actually angled inward slightly, which not only makes it look more natural as it walks, it's another reason why it's more stable and can pick its feet way up without the help of big distracting stabilizer parts on the bottom. It's really just fantastic. And notice also that the entire neck moves, it's not just the jaw. I also think the arms not moving actually looks better. It seems at first like they've removed a feature, but this is obviously what the arms would be doing if the Zoid were actually walking, and it now makes me wonder how he accepted the weird flailing arms on the others all these years. But that's it really, it walks and the head lights up. Unfortunately there's no way to really switch it to the CPC pose, you just have to stop it at a position where the mouth is open and then you finagle all the hatches in place. And because it's impossible to do that with the tail at full extension, it's always going to stand like this, which looks a bit off. Now, I've done a lot of nitpicking and complaining so far, but here's the thing. You can't help but compare this to the AZ Death Saurer for reasons that I'm sure are obvious enough, and that's actually really not fair. This thing is literally half the price of the Death Saurer, and while it's obviously also a lot smaller, you just can't expect it to have the same amount of bells and whistles at that price. I would have loved it if it could switch into the CPC pose the way the Berserk Führer did, but they clearly just decided on one thing and made sure that it does that thing really well. And like I said, there's just no other motorized Zoid that walks as well as this one does. It also just looks fantastic. You can nitpick the deviations from the original that the Death Saurer did, but I really think this one is an improvement over the original in every way. More detail without looking cluttered, and the proportions are just different enough to do away with that slightly stumpy appearance that the original had. So that's my verdict. There aren't as many gimmicks here as we might have liked, and a few very minor parts fit issues, but this is another engineering marvel in the AZ line. It looks beautiful, and it's also pretty reasonably priced. If you're like me and you think the Geno Saurer might be the best thing that came out of the NJR, I really can't recommend this one enough, and me, I'm already psyched for the Geno Breaker. And that's it for this one, folks. I've still got the 2 Spider-Man Zoids to review, 2 new kits from 2 Toys on the way, and a Machine and Krieger build I'm about half finished with, so if you're into that sort of thing, now's a good time to subscribe to the channel, and if you made it this far, leave a like and a comment to let the algorithm know you have good taste. I also have PayPal and Patreon links in the description below if you'd like to help me with my Zoids budget, and in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.